Well, hello, it's Romania Black, and let me tell you all, I'm a little nervous. We're on Lord of the Mysteries, and it's episode 8. It's the rule of 8 for Lord of the Mysteries, and if you don't know what the rule of 8 is, it's okay. If you've ever been on my channel before, and there is a short series of 11 to 13 episodes, then usually, typically, very rarely have I been proven wrong, episode 8 is crazy. Episode 8 is usually a wild ass time, and I'm like, okay, what do we do with this? So that's usually where we go. So this is episode 8 of a 13 episode series. So I'm like, okay, usually episode 8 or episode 9. So again, if it's 13 episodes, sometimes it's episode 9. So the rule of 8 might be wrong, but I don't think it's going to be because episode 7 was definitely a setup episode. And now it's like, now it's time for things to go on, because usually the 8th episode is the turning point where we're turning towards the arc that is the finale of this season, or if it's a short series of the series. So yeah, just that. Conspiracy Board Summit is getting filled up with papers, which is concerning because we're not even through season 1 all the way, and we still have OVAs and lots of other things to look at, and I'm like, we're going to have lots of space being taken up. So I have a plethora of translated images that, as I was downloading them to look at them with you all, I was like, oh, we have a lot of text to go through from Truck over on Patreon. And then we have comments we need to talk about from episode 7 from patrons. So we just need to dive into it. But y'all, this is going to be a long intro. This is probably going to be a long episode. So I'm just calling it now. It probably will be. So Anime Annie for episode 7 says the final step for Klein to digest the potion being the acceptance that divination is not omnipotent and that seers are not infallible, I find very intriguing. Mainly because I'm most familiar with the Christian doctrine on the Christian and Jewish God being omnipotent and an infallible being. But I know in many other religions, they're not seen as supreme beings who are all-knowing. So, for one of the earlier steps in Klein's chosen path of the divine to be acknowledgement that he is not such a being and his power is not supreme, if the end goal of the sequence is to become a god or goddess, then it's already setting up from the beginning that the gods or goddesses of this world are not omnipotent. But it is also intriguing how acceptance of divination being lacking in this way is actually what gives Klein the power and ability to see into the past so clearly. Yeah, I mean, I think so too. I brought this up in episode 7, but I don't know if this world is establishing that there was an omnipotent, like, you know, because Christian doctrine as well as, you know, Jewish and some other religions, it's like there's one God. There's one omnipotent being that is the center of everything, that has created everything. But then you have other religions where everything has a divine spirit, or there are multiple gods and things like that. And I think that the one versus many kind of determines whether or not they're infallible. I think that's kind of a part of that. So last episode I was like, okay, well, we're establishing there's lots of gods and goddesses, but I think the gods and goddesses were once people that got to sequence 1 and became those god and goddesses. So I think that's the thing. So like that ball of sun, the sun god was once a person, but they got to sequence 1 and became the sun. That's just how I think. That's my theory. So who knows if that's correct or not. But if that is the case, I think the idea with the sequence is for you to keep advancing and not lose control, you gotta humble yourself, but also establish that you're not going to be this omnipotent power. And that humility is going to get you to the next stage, which I think Klein could get there. I think Klein could get there, but he's got a few little cat-like tendencies to get in over his head that we might need to work past, but we'll see. We'll see. So yeah, that was a good comment to have, Anime Annie. I like the way that was worded. Then we have a comment from this patron who their name was in Chinese and I can't read Chinese characters, so I had to put it through a translator app. So their name translated to Xinghua Shuying. I hope I said that right. And then their name also translates to, in English, the sparse shadows of apricot blossoms, which is a beautiful translation. I was like, that's such a cool name. Like the sparse shadows of apricot blossoms. Gorgeous name. Love that for you. So I like, that's awesome. My name, you know, yeah. Anyway, so I was like, yeah, I really love that. So Very cool. But they said for episode 7, the name Secret Order often gets confused with secret organizations, but this might be a problem in the translation. The Chinese name for Secret Order is Siu Hui, which is more similar to the name for Moses or Mosi, or ascetic order Q Siu Hu. Hui. The difference between Mi Siu Hui, the secret order, and Ku Siu Sui lies in the fact that Mi stands for esoteric and Ku stands for suffering and hardship, while Sui in both terms means to cultivate. A more proper translation could be esoteric cultivation order. So, good to know. So the secret order and secret organizations, there's a little translation, but basically we're getting into the idea that these hidden organizations, they're separated from our organizations like the Nighthawks and all of that. So I appreciate the translation notes. They also said some notes on philosophy, not so relevant perhaps. It might be interesting to wonder why black and yellow are associated with heaven and earth in ancient China. It's important to note the character Zhan for black and in the good luck rituals version of black and yellow is different from the one used in Klein's incantation. Hey, in Show When, Zhan was explained as hidden and afar. The black with a hue of red is Zhan, symbolizing secrecy, like one is about to be covered up. The character written on the oracle bones for Zhan seems to symbolize silk, thus leading scholars to think that it has literally come from dyeing silk. Zhou Li, the rules of etiquette for the Zhou dynasty, Zhang dyed feathers. Dyeing 3 times produces Zhang, which is a bright red. 5 times it produces Zhou, which is red. And 7 times produces Ji, which is black. Thus, the black with a hue of red likely came from black, how it was produced from dye. That's really freaking cool. I also like the idea that you dye it red so much it becomes black. That's really interesting because if you've ever been around blood, or if you're a woman and you have menstruation, you notice that like it just kind of becomes black or darkened over time. Interesting. Zhan and Huang were the color of heaven and earth intertwined, and heaven is Zhan and earth is Huang. The color of the earth is Shou Wen. My guess is that this could be because the sun, moon, and stars were thought of as vehicles traveling in the sky rather than the sky itself, thus why it remains black. I'm learning so much today, and so are we. So if you've been on Patreon, there's been some really good comments, but thank you. I really appreciate that. And finally, I talked about episode 7 that I was going to look back through my notes on Conspiracy Board Sama, and yes. So back in episode 1, Gustav, when he was saying which pathways he wished he would have chosen from, he wished he would have chosen either seer, apprentice, or marauder. And we know Levinus is a sequence 8 swindler, which is from the marauder pathway. And I'm like, okay, so he's probably going to be powerful. That's scary. But also the Antigonus family notebook from last episode has the sequence 9 potions for seer and apprentice. And I'm like, okay, so the Antigonus family was getting in all the know, and is possibly tied to the secret order, which is tied to giving Gustav information. So we're connecting threads. We're connecting all the threads, which is exciting. So that's great. Good to know. Then I want to talk to you all about this translated business that Truck has brought up, and I'm just going to record myself going through it because there's a lot and we need to just dive into that. So I'm going to show you all this recording and then I can pull it up probably in better quality here for you all. So here in 3, 2, 1. This is, so Tiny Truck, thank you for all these translations. They got it from someone else on the Discord they gave credit to. But it says, wanted order, Lenovus. Suspect in the iron ore investment in the Hornatius Mountains. So it says a main suspect in the iron ore investment scam in the Hornatius Mountains. It says Lenovus, I want to say Lavinius, but it's Lenovus. Lenovus began to spread rumors in May of this year in Tingen, stating that during his exploration of the Hornatius Mountains, he discovered a large, richly mined iron ore deposit of exceptional quality. Later, he established a steel company on the grounds of lacking follow-up development funds. In order to apply for loans from banks and issue a certain proportion of stocks to raise initial funds, claiming that the plan was still in private preparation and promising something returns. Investors have the trust. So basically, he was kind of committing fraud. I'm not an economist. I don't major in economy. I've never taken an economy class before. But basically, it sounds like he was being pretty fraudulent. Just a wee bit. Being a little fraudulent, he looks like a fraud. But then there's this picture that says, aced in this project. Over 100 people had invested in the project with the total amount over da 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 da. So yeah, so basically he committed this fraud and there were over 100 people involved in it that are not happy, so that would explain why he disappeared. Then we get this, and this is from the notebook, I believe. Or is it from, we're going to read this. I returned to the ding to go to the first and borrow a few more journals to find more clues to the treasure. The Antigonus family notebook left behind a secret treasure. As a force, downfall, there is believed that the treasure is somewhere on the main peak of the Horatius Mountains. The Night Kingdom finally believe that somewhere on the mountains in the Night Kingdom finally respected something for help. Okay, so basically the artifact we need to find, the notebook, the Antigonus family notebook, is going to connect us to the artifact that's on top of the Horatius Mountains, and it is something that the Secret Order people want to find. Because it sounds like it has connections to the Seer pathway, maybe the Apprentice pathway, maybe the Marauders. Who knows? There's Marauders involved. That, and knowing how powerful the Seer pathway could be, that could be very important for them to get. Then we had these ledgers here. So from June 16th, there's Go, Lanavus, Yumwuji, Cyrus, Arepis, Hetva, Vili, Krieb, Tubbs. Okay, and so we see like their names in the registers of when they checked out the book, and Sirius's name is in there quite a bit. Sirius Arepis. Oh, there's also Cyrus Arepis. Interesting. And this Yum person has checked it out as well. I wonder if Cyrus Euripus, I wonder if they're family members. So I wonder if Cyrus and Sirius, Sirius is dead, but I wonder if Cyrus will come investigating his brother's death. Interesting. Curious. We might check on that. But yeah, June 25th, June 16th, May 30th. Then there's this, which is the piece of paper that he was using saying the real reason Klein Moretti shot himself. That's how he's trying to interpret it. It says the lead to the clown potion. Thanks to Zishari for helping finding with the Mo and Yao parts, I had managed to Google translate my way through the rest. I knew it was likely Mai, but I couldn't find it alone. We tried solving the other rituals too, only to solve the last part of most and couldn't find that perfect fit. I love that Cuttlefish just created all this and then said, they'll figure it out. Cuttlefish is like, I went to the trouble of creating this language. Y'all can figure it out and decipher it. Have fun. What a modern day treasure hunt. I'm so intrigued. Love it. Then there are all these books here that say Elliot. Okay, so file. Elliot's kidnapping case. Party, Elliot, executor, Klein Moretti, and Leonard Mitchell. File, Ray Bieber out of control case. Party, Ray Bieber, executor, Klein Moretti, and Leonard Mitchell. Vincent's magic mirror black divination case. Party, Hannes Vincent, executor, Klein Moretti. Oh. Leonard's not there. But yeah, so interesting. Wow, okay. So there's that. And then there's this one that says Blackthorn Security, the Hanged Man card. Deweyville Library borrowing card. Yep, Clown Potion Formula. Storm Rend Mountain Villa by Force W. I think that she's going to become important. I think the whole Madame Force she's going to be a part to play in all of this, but we'll have to see. And then thank you for translating what these letters, these numbers at the end meant. I'm very grateful because I could not figure it out. And I was like, ah. So it was basically all the years are 1349, which is the current year. But it basically started out by saying August 13th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th. So leading up to today and to now. Okay. That's what it's doing. All right. So getting us caught back up a week later, that 1 week time. And then they went back and then it was like a month prior. Okay. So thank you for that. And also, I know I've been like getting on about how I love the posters. This is my new favorite for episode 7. This is my new favorite for a number of reasons. First, the monochromatic grayscale with the red color spotting of the blood and the red smokestacks and the clown. I'm all about. I have always been about red and black, like white and black grayscale with red color pop. Oh, you want to get Romania's goat, you put some red color pop in a monochromatic black and white grayscale. Oh, love it. Okay, but there's Klein reaching for the smokestacks, the piece of glass on the smokestack. That's his clue to figuring out what this is all about. And on either side, if you look, on one side there's Moretti about to shoot himself, and which is tied to the smokestacks. Then on the other side is him in the gray fog, Klein in the gray fog, trying to figure everything out. And then above it is the clown who started this whole business. And then the red, the blood, and also it's a broken mirror, so it's like 7 years bad luck. So it's all coming together. It's all coming together. It's all coming together. Someone had asked why I didn't react to a Chibi short last week, and that is or 2 weeks ago, and that is because my moderators have sorted out where all the Chibis go, and they determined that I didn't need to watch it last week. So I do have a Chibi short this week and an Old Neil class this week as well. So we're getting our normal double dose again. So there's that. But yeah, I've literally talked for a solid 15 minutes. I'm so sorry, but it felt necessary because there's so much with this series. But now we can begin proper. So yeah, I'm excited. Anyway, we have 34 minutes to get through, so let's not waste any more time. We are going to be watching Lord of the Mysteries. Oh, that was a good crack. Episode 8 of this series, and we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's get this party started. Oh! No big deal! No freaking big deal! Oh my god! I was thinking about this as I was recording. I was like, the stars truly did align. 8's my lucky number. Rule of 8. If you're watching this on Patreon, it's come out on August 8th, which is 8/8. The 8th episode. All of that. Well, on the one hand, I'm real glad that Old Neil didn't die. I'm so glad Old Neil didn't die, because I'm going to be honest. I was like, it's going to be Havre or Old Neil, like right off the bat. And I was like, if it is Old Neil, I'm going to be lost. And I thought for a second, I was like, okay, well, I was like in my head trying to reason. I'm like, well, there's still Old Neil lessons to come, I think. But then I was like, because if you ever have seen, the mods, what they've done is there's a folder on a drive that I have that says Lord of the Mysteries shorts. And when I click on it, it has each of the episodes. And I told you all last week that episodes like 9, 12, and 13 have nothing. And I'm like, I'm on my own in the next few weeks, and I don't like that. But I was like, oh God. So as the episode was going on, I was like, well, Old Neil has death flags, but I was like trying to like bargain with myself as I was watching the episode, going, they're not going to kill off Old Neil because I still have like things I need to watch with him for episodes 10 and 11. But then I was like, well, actually, I don't know if I have things in episode 10 and 11. They might just be chibis, and it might not be Old Neil's lessons. So I was like, shit. So the whole time I was like, he could die, and then I'm lost. And also Old Neil would have died, which is really sad. So, oh, man, that sucks for Havre. I was just like, Havre didn't even know her. Just, boom. I was really nervous this whole episode. This episode was freaking sad and makes everything in the context of being a Beyonder. It's kind of a double-edged sword, and I'm so glad that by the end of it, Klein has such a positive outlook, or positive in comparison to what it could be, because you either have to look at it as, oh shit, now that you're a Beyonder, you probably are going to lose control and die and become a monster. That's terrifying. Or you could go the Klein route and go, I guess I'll just become a deity. Become a god or die is basically the route of Lord of the Mysteries. That's basically it. That's basically your options. We're going to talk about this episode, and man, it just tugged at my heartstrings. It just like tugged at them really hard, especially at the end. I was very quiet during the part with Neil when he was playing the piano. One, the combination of Moonlight Sonata, which I'm pretty sure that's what that was, Moonlight Sonata and the ED, putting them together and mixing them is just beautiful. If it's not Moonlight Sonata and the ED and it's just the ED, then sure, but there is some similarities. I do love me some good Beethoven and Mozart. Gotta go with the classics. But we learned a lot. Luckily, Whiteboard Coon got a little bit of a break this week from Old Neil. We just mainly talked about the reasons one loses control. We talked a little bit about the Secret Order, which I went ahead and wrote down here. We'll talk about them in a second. And then the Forsaken Land of God, basically Europe. Sorry, England. Sucks to be you all. Which is kind of ironic because this all is like a Victorian steampunk era, but the Forsaken Land of God is literally on this map of a parallel world to our own world is basically Europe. So that's really humorous to me. All the European people watching this are like, yeah, okay, come on, American girl. And I was like, I know. Let me have this. Anyway, all right, let's get into this episode. We'll talk about all of this when we get down to it, but I want to go ahead and start this episode because it was really good. The Rule of 8 did not let us down. It definitely feels like a turning point here in 3, 2, 1. It feels like a turning point. And the one thing that bothers me, and it's gonna come out, and I don't know what we're gonna do with it, is Klein relying on Isaac to help is so smart, and I think it's a great idea, but Leonard is on to Klein about him being shady about it, and Leonard's whole thing is, if I can't trust you, then it literally, Leonard is at home listening to Tango de Roxanne, and it's like, without love, without trust, there is no love, and like, he just literally is playing that on repeat, and I think I think Leonard wants to trust Klein, and he believes in Klein, but he's very confused as to why Klein is doing these things, potentially, behind the Nighthawk's back. And I think he knows Klein is not a villain or someone that's going to hurt Dunn or any of them. But he's like, then why are you doing this without telling us? And Klein's like, well, I have reasons. And they're pretty important reasons. So it's going to be real interesting to see how all this shakes out. That's for damn sure. But yeah. So let's get into this. You mother trucking show. How dare you? How mother trucking dare you? It just hit me. The fish that we opened up with at the beginning of the episode, and then Havre becomes a fish man at the end of the episode, the bookend with that. The F you say, how dare you? Oh my gosh. I am just flabbergasted. My gabbers are flasted for sure. My flabbers are gasted. I mean, oh, Klein. So Klein's just like, well, I haven't found any new leads by using divination since the last time. Klein, just settle down. I really got in my head that the person sitting next to him was Leonard for a hot second, and my shipper goggles were getting adjusted, and I was like, Leonard's gonna like lean forward and be like, what's the matter, Klein? And then it was Isaac, and I was like, oh. Not that I'm mad. I freaking love Isaac, and I will not turn down the opportunity to see him, but, So he's like, I have charms. I have the Flaring Sun charm. I need to find... I know that Klein, again, seeing the little hair there, I didn't see it in the ponytail, so for a second I thought it was Leonard. But he's like, I need to find a way to take advantage of the blood from the eternal blazing sun. He literally is taking, in my mind, all the gods, the organized, the sanctified gods and everything, they were just people that became Sequence 1. That's my theory. That is my theory. They are Sequence 1 Beyonders that became gods. And they're the only ones that have been able to do it because we've seen how hard it is to maintain Sequence 7, 8, and 9, much less 5, 6, 4, 3, 2, and then Sequence 1. Like, much less any of those. And we don't even know what Sequence Isaac is. I imagine I'm going to predict Isaac's like 3 or 4. I'm going to imagine Isaac's like Sequence 3 or 4. He's not quite a deity, but he's on his way. But to me, the blood of the Eternal Blazing Sun is he just took the blood of someone, only they're like a god now. So there's that. But again, Klein learning nothing. But I don't blame him. He's like, I have this opportunity. I need to take advantage of it. And that's when we pan over and there's Mr. Frickin' Isaac. Look at him. Let's gaze at his splendor for a hot moment. Let's just look at him. He looks great. Like, crops are watered, skies are clear, breaths have been deeply taken. We are all just savoring in that moment. Like, he's just so good. Yeah. Obviously, I think what's interesting to me is the idea of what is the downfall of Dunn and them finding out about Isaac? Is there a downfall if they find out about Isaac? I mean, Azek's, I guess it is kind of like a little secret between Klein and him about his origins and his past and everything. But I wish that he could find a way to tell Leonard and Dunn about Azek, considering that Azek is connected to Tenno Eggers' skull, because that's his son. I think it would make things a lot easier for them all if he could. But I know why Klein is doing this all in secret. I know why he is doing it all in secret. It just is so concerning to me because Leonard is suspicious of him. And y'all know me if you've watched any other show on my channel. I hate miscommunication as a trope. And I'm like, if Leonard miscommunicates and misunderstands Klein as an enemy, then I'm like, I don't want that to happen. But then on the other hand, I'm like, how does Klein tell Dunn and Leonard? How does he tell him? Be like, hey, so I'm not really Klein. I'm actually from another world, and I've transmigrated into his body, and I'm trying to figure out why this guy shot himself before I came around. And oh, also, I can go to a random realm where I might be gaslighting two people into worshiping me. And also, like, I get why he can't do that, because once you start explaining one thing, it's like just comes all out. But in the other sense, I'm like, I don't want you to get expelled from the Nighthawks. I don't want that, because I feel like the Nighthawks are good for you right now. Do I think that eventually down the road, Klein may leave the Nighthawks? Yeah, I think that might happen. Do I think Leonard would follow him? Maybe. Dunn gives me death flags. Dunn has gave me death flags since day one. He has given me, there's a character in Attack on Titan that he reminds me of, and the moment I started making that characterization and that, like, connection, I was like, you're gonna die. And I just feel like Dunn is the mentor figure. I kind of thought it was gonna happen to old Neil in this episode, because old Neil has been a mentor figure to Klein, but Dunn has been that mentor figure, like Daddy Dunn, and I'm like, I'm just concerned. I am concerned. Although, Klein did give us a reason why they could be safe, but we got to get there. They haven't shown any cracks since they noticed my gaze. And he's like, relax, don't get too fixated on it. This animation, by the way, is absolutely gorgeous. Someone said that this, like, the company that makes this series is like one of the most, like, prestigious companies in Chinese animation, or they have lots of money. They're just like throwing it at Lord of the Mysteries, and I'm like, keep throwing. Get that in there. But also, it's gorgeous. It's beautiful to look at. You almost take advantage and take for granted how beautiful the animation is, right? And then Azek's like, maybe a turning point is just a thought away. And I'm like, don't be. People were jinxing this episode left and right. I wanted to grab people and shake them. He's like, relax, don't get too fixated upon it. Yep. And then, yeah, the fish biting the bait. This right here feels like, in my mind, a metaphor for Havre and Magos. Magos is the bobber, and Havre bit the bait, but the bait caused him to lose control of his Beyonder abilities and transform. And I feel like whatever demon baby she has inside of her now, because tell me it's not, is going to cause Beyonders to get too close to possibly lose control. And I just get bad vibes. Anytime that it's like that woman's pregnant and that baby's doing crazy stuff, that baby's going to tear itself out of her or something crazy like that. And I just don't have time for that. Well, earlier on in the series, wasn't Klein fighting, like in one of the earlier episodes, like what looked like a woman that like had turned into a spider or something? Is that going to be Magos? Is Magos going to turn into that and like her demon baby's going to come out? Ain't got time. Ain't got time for it. Well, we're going to get there when we get there. But yeah, Mr. Azek, there is something I want you to help me with. I like Mr. Azek's just like, yes. Like, he looks over like, yes, may I catch my fish in peace? He's like, look, I need your help. So, episode 8 is called Losing Control. And it says, we are guardians. Ooh, which is the quotation from Archbishop Channis, who founded the Nighthawks. We are guardians, but also a bunch of miserable wretches that are constantly fighting against threats and madness. The threats being the outside, entities, and the madness being from within. Which, yeah, I would honestly say anybody that willingly chooses to be a Beyonder and accepts that risk of that power is a little mad. It's the Alice in Wonderland, we're all mad here. Yeah, a little bit. Quite a bit. It's like once you start down that pathway, you've accepted the madness and of everything that comes with it. So yeah, interesting indeed. So, okay. So we start this episode with, proper, with a tarot club meeting between Klein and Audrey and Alger. So Klein is like, an unnamed island. What is this? He's just like, psh. I was like, that could have been important. I feel like Whiteboard Kun and I were like, maybe you should tell us the name of that. Well, it said unnamed island. Maybe we should know the context of that. Like, where was the island at? Is it by the Forsaken Land of God? Is it the Forsaken Land of God? Would be nice to know, sir. Anyway. And then Audrey's like, well, I'm so sorry I couldn't locate any new pages. And he's like, it's fine. I mean, I would understand Klein being forgiving because they are literally secret diary pages of Rozelle's. Why would you expect them to just be like handily, readily available to, obtain? And so she's like, but I've been in contact with a few secret Beyonder circles in hopes of getting more pages. I hope to receive information on hidden organizations. I get a little concerned when she says that because the idea that Audrey's like, I've just been in contact with secret organizations. And I'm like, girl, that's like playing with fire. Although she does have the spectator pathway, so she could possibly be able to get herself out of harm if things got too dicey. So that's just interesting to me. I want to put that down here. So Audrey, what we have going on in the sidelines is that Audrey's done two things. The Chibi Shorts told us one of the things that she's done, and that is take Klein's idea about basically the Chinese SAT, about the exam, and she exchanged it for £1,000 a month. 12,000 pounds a year. They made a big deal about the scam that Levinus was doing, or Lanavis. I want to call him Lavinius, and I know that's wrong. Lanavis. What they were called, they said his scam was like a 10,000 pound scam, which was unheard of. She's going to be getting 12,000 pounds a year just for her allowance. Sir, are you appropriating? I get the feeling this is a monarchy and not like a democracy, because I don't know if the taxpayers would feel good knowing their funds are being appropriated to your daughter's monthly allowance, but whatever. So anyway, she got that, and that's how she paid off Alger for the extra information. But her other thing is that she's going to secret organizations trying to get info on diary pages. And look, the organizations may think nothing of it. They may be like, oh, this girl has money and she's just trying to collect diary pages. Nobody can read them, so who cares? Maybe they would view it as that. It's not as dangerous of a situation as I think it is, but it does bring me concern. When Alger looks over to Klein and Klein's like, don't look at me. I thought of two things. One, I thought of Christina Aguilera's beautiful video where she's like, don't look at me. How it starts. That's the early 2000s soul in me. The other thing is, I thought someone established that they couldn't see what each other looked like. So him looking over, I guess, do they all just appear as blobs at the table? And he just looks over to Klein in his blob form. And Klein's like, don't look at me. I don't know. He's like, the all-knowing Mr. Fool in front of you is only bronze tier. Again, I love this idea that the deities, or if you become a deity, you're not, infallible. And Klein is a prime example of that. He's like, I'm taking advantage of the situation, but I don't know everything. That's why I'm relying on you all. Which is kind of funny, the idea of a would-be deity relying upon the people who are worshiping him. That's fun. Which I guess so many stories that I'm watching on this channel or that I have read or watch talk about how entities of power are only entities of power because of the people that worship them or give them that power. So this kind of taps into that mindset that Klein is only powerful because these people give him that power. If they didn't believe in him or they didn't try to help him, he would have been dead a long time ago. So Alger concerns me a little bit. They play him off in the Chibi thing as, being this captain. So Alger in the Chibi series, which don't tell us we don't get anything important from the Chibi series, he is a captain. He is also a Sequence 8 Folk of Rage, which was the same as Havre, by the way. So I feel as if that's not a coincidence that we get them both in this episode, more than we usually get. but he's the one that has this information. He concerns me because he has a lot of hidden information. He also seems like he knows stuff that's from the hidden organizations. He also knew stuff with the Aurora Order. They talked about the True God and all of that, and that's why I'm saying he's connected to the Aurora Order. Now, Alger's a captain on ship. These sailors, they come from all around. They gossip. He may be hearing hearsay from here, there, and everywhere. When they go to port, he hears this and whatever. He may be like Audrey and just gathering up all this information. And it's just stuff he's like collected over time. That's a big possibility. I'm not going to say that's not possible. But it does make him seem a little suspicious. Like, what I know is just the tip of the iceberg. I can only get someone else to find out more. Okay, there we go. He's like, I can pay off someone to get me the info, but I'm a ship captain. I ain't got the time to do it myself. And she's like, well, I really would like to hear what you know. And I like that Alger's like, I'm going to need money for that. I love this jewelry, the bracelet and the rings and everything. Love a man that can accentuate. He reminds me a little bit like Keith Richards, the way he's dressed. He's like, I want 1,000 pounds in non-consecutive old banknotes. I gotta feed my crew. So we established that like rent was what, 12 pounds? Or no, like the weekly, I'm gonna get a calculator out. So Klein's weekly wage was like 12 pounds. Is that correct? Did we establish that a while back? Let's just say that wasn't the rent like 12 pounds? Something was 12 pounds. Either Klein's weekly or monthly wage or the monthly rent. But yeah, I mean, if you looked at it that way, basically, yeah, they'd be able to be well set for like years off 1,000 pounds. And he's like, you could buy a mansion for 1,000 pounds. So when they said 10,000 pounds for the scandal with Lanavis, I was like, okay, well, that makes sense. It's kind of like a big CEO having like, it'd be like cryptocurrency having this like $1 million scam or something. It's kind of similar to that. So yeah, the 1,000 pounds is interesting. And I wonder if Alger was just throwing that number out there to get her to get off the trail of it. If he was, I wonder two things. One, if Alger threw the 1,000 pounds out there to throw her off and be like, she ain't got that money, so she ain't going to ask anymore. And I don't have to divulge my information because there's no way she's got it. Or he was thinking, on the off chance this girl is loaded and does have the money, I can supply my crew. So it's kind of a win-win. Either he doesn't have to divulge the information, but he can reveal that he knows it, so it gives him the upper hand in the situation. Or he can divulge the information that he has and still get a lot of money out of it. So win-win. But yeah, do I think the information he gave was worth 1,000 pounds? No. I think it was pretty generic. But, to her, Audrey's like, sure, I'll send it to the same address. And that because they shared addresses with how they got the potion. And I kind of feel like Alger feels a little bad in this moment. He got the sweat drops. I think he feels a little bad, like he might have taken advantage of her by taking her money and giving her the info that he has. But I'm like, you threw the price out there. That's the thing. When you say you're going to sell something and you give a price, you have to be putting a price out there that you expect you are willing to accept. Because the moment you say, well, I would take, 30,000 for this car, and somebody's like, okay, then if you didn't want to sell it for that price, you should have put it higher. I mean, if you're really that dead set on it, but yeah, there he goes. And yeah, Klein's like, oh my gosh, she's loaded. She just dropped 1,000 pounds like that. And then he's like, okay, calm down, Joe Mingrui. It's only money. I'm glad he calls himself Joe here, because that has been one thing I've been sort of on the fence about doing. Like, I call him Klein all the time because he's literally in Klein Moretti's body, but I get kind of like nervous about it. I blame it on watching Spirited Away when I was a kid, but I get nervous about the concept of changing your name and thus losing your identity when you change your name. And so I feel like if Joe forgets that he is Joe and becomes Klein, he will lose that part of himself. And so that constantly makes me very scared. So I'm glad he called himself Joe Mingrui here. And she's like, well, you can start, Hanged Man. So we find out this thing about the organizations. There's over 100, which if you recall, in Lanavis's article that Truck transcribed, there were over 100 investors in the project with the Hornacious Mountains. So there's 100 different secret organizations, 100 investors is there an investor from every secret organization getting in on Lanavis's project? If that's the case, that would add a lot more stake to what's happening because every secret organization has a hand in the pot. So that could be rather interesting. Ancient organizations from the fourth epoch include... Okay, so he puts down these cards here that are for the different orders. Like we see, I'm assuming there's the Hanged Man one there, maybe the Demoness. There's some other there. And what did he say there? He's the Demoness sect, the Mosaic. Yeah, the Moses Ascetic Order is the one on top. And there's the eyeball, yeah. So their sequence 9 pathway is the mystery prior one. And he's like, that's old Neil's pathway. The members worship knowledge itself and call their god the hidden sage. And it's fell from grace and is now considered an evil organization. So we talked about this a little bit at the beginning of the series, but there is like the Moses ascetic order. They have the mystery prior, which funny that we mentioned old Neil in this. My dog is snoring at my feet, which is funny. But also their whole thing is that they worship the hidden sage that is like knowledge, a being of knowledge that is alive. Again, I wonder if the hidden sage was a human that got high enough sequence to become a deity and people were worshiping as such. Yep. Legend has it that the hidden sage came to life. No, I think that they are a person, a personification of an evil god. And orders that were born early in this epoch are the Rose School. What does it say? The Rose School of Thought. It said in there the Life School of Thought. So I'm going to put Rose on there because that was a different translation. Okay. Rose School of Thought is interesting because there's like, looks like little petals flying on the distance or the little blood droplets there. And they're from the southern continent. Okay. So the Rose School of Thought and the Numinous Episcopate? Yeah, Episcopate. Okay. Those, I'm going to put a little star by. I'm going to draw a little arrow too. They're from the southern continent. Do I think that we will eventually do a Digimon Season 2 World Tour where we'll go to these other continents? Yep, think we will, but we're not there yet. And the Numinous Episcopate worships death. Okay, let's go down to here, saying the Numinous, they worship death. We did say death was a deity, so that is not surprising. So he says there, and then the Aurora Order, we'll talk about them in a second. And he's like, we'll just end there for today. And so they leave. And so we get Klein going back as he brushes his teeth. Klein looks great. I will say, Klein's got this big old broad chest on him. Leonard would pay for a photo of this. I'm just putting that out there. But Klein looks really good. The Numinous Episcopate worships death. I feel that might have a link to Mr. Azek. And speaking of which, I haven't heard back from him in the days that I asked him to ask for help. I love that his like shirt's halfway unbuttoned and it's undone. If you've ever seen Hunter x Hunter, he looks like Wing. I'm just saying, he looks like Wing there. But yeah, Leonard would be all about this look. I'm just saying. And so then this kid, extra strange paranormal activity down at the docks today. Oh no, I need to stop doing British accents. It's not good. And he's like wiping the toothpaste out. And he's like, I'll buy a paper from you. Meanwhile, Benson and Melissa and their 6 baguettes. I'm like, girl. I'm like, how much olive oil and Parmesan do these people go through per week? I just want to know. And then she's like, is that a gun? Okay, so I do like that Klein is very quick to think on his feet. And he's like, oh yeah, I took on a part-time job as a security guard and I have to be issued a gun. Okay, thanks, bye. Good last minute addition there. Nice. Like, he looks rather chipper. That purple and turquoise clock weirds me out. It weirds me out because it's such a neon purple and neon turquoise, and it looks sickly. It doesn't look right. I mean, if it was like a dark purple that kind of goes with the weathered earth tones of the tower itself where the clock is, it'd be fine, but it just looks unnatural and weird. So yeah. So all these things have been going on. No casualties, just the worshippers of the Evernight goddess were targeted. That is interesting to me. So Azek, I'm going to put this down here. Azek notes that in his investigation has caused there to be the Evernight goddess worshippers targeted. That to me, they didn't say specifically Nighthawks, so not that. But that to me tells one of two things. Either whoever is in charge of this is targeting Evernight goddess worshippers themselves because they're looking for Klein. So there's that. And two, that whoever is possibly involved and responsible for all this is a worshipper of the Evernight goddess or posing as one. So I guess we'll see where that goes, but that's interesting. And then, yeah, he's like, Mr. Azek must have begun to take action. He's like, what's the rush? You're not even in here once in 800 years. Now that you're here, you're not leaving. So, Folk of Rage, the mandated Punisher Havre. Interesting. How old is this man? Because old Neil, unless old Neil aged very quickly and rapidly since his wife's death, which stress will do that to you, so that is a very big possibility. But I'm like, how old is old Neil in relation to Havre? Because Havre doesn't look that old, but he was around when, I mean, maybe Havre, let's say Havre's in his 50s. Maybe that photo was taken when Havre was in his 20s and old Neil was in his 50s, and it's like one of those scenarios. Maybe. I'm going to be honest. I'll explain the whole mantle thing when we get to it. I had a thought, and then I was like, no. He's like, you need to relax. Give me 2 Southville beers. You just want to use my tab. It was like, Klein, fancy seeing you here. This bar is also ridiculous. Like the cages and stuff and all the clocks. Crazy. So Wright is the bartender. He's like, put it on his tab. I know. Wright's the bartender here that gets them the beers. Interesting. They all drink it, so I don't think there's anything in the beers. He's like, you hear about the incidents at the dock? He's like, yes. The mandated punishers aren't in a position to investigate non-worshippers of the Lord of Storms. Okay, so the mandated punishers are like, we're just here to watch over the people for our own religion. We're not here to look after the Evernight goddess worshippers. That's not our jam. So he's like, no, the spirit bodies were highly unusual and difficult to expel. They appeared to be ancient, like they were from the 4th epoch. And Klein's like, yep, that's Azek. He's like, hey, let's change the subject. I have a mission to do. He's like, next time come by the bar, by the docks, and we'll drink the night away. Old Neil's all about drinking, you know? He's like, you owe me 2 beers. You better pay me back double next time. There were so many red flags, or death flags rather, for both Neil and Havre. I was like, one of them's gonna die, but I didn't know which one until he heard the stuff from a ghost, and I was like, oh, it's him. But then I was like, I don't know. I don't want. And then I thought, what if Havre kills old Neil and we lose both of them this week? I was just like, no. So he said he's a drunk. I'm already sorry, Truck. There's so much that needs to be translated. I don't know what these papers say. But yeah, so the dock incident is quite suspicious. And he's like, why do I have to deal with this? And so here's the thing. Dunn's like a sudden okay, well, here's the thing. First of all, he said Leonard and Kinley are both green. You're more familiar with this. And that's when Klein volunteers. And he's like, well, I could use some divination. And Neil's like, well, that's a great idea. My poor back. I just don't think I can go out there. And Dunn's like, well, you would get, anyone over 50 gets double subsidy for the missions. Dunn's like, you'll get double the commission if you go. And he's like, actually, Klein and I can do this together. Which is hilarious. I hear those spirit bodies are difficult to deal with. And he's like, well, the only thing to deal with them is artifact 30782. And Klein's like, oh, that mutated sun emblem. Well, funny that. I need to be using that for myself so I can copy it and get myself some sun charms. And he's like, no, we can't really use it. It's too crowded. And he's like, well, of course, it'd just be, good for worst case scenarios. We, the audience, know Klein is so obvious here. He is so obvious. But Dunn is so pragmatic and practical and straightforward. I feel like he doesn't get how obvious Klein is. I feel like Dunn doesn't get it. He's like, okay. But Leonard's like, you're acting kind of weird, Klein. Yeah, Leonard knows something's up. Yep, he does. He's like, I guess we'll do it. Just don't watch it from over an hour. And Klein's like, yes, sir! Look at him. Look at his little shit-eating grin. Look how proud he is in that moment. Okay, so before we get to Leonard and all that, and the ship, and where shit goes down this episode, we need to talk about a couple things. So we have what's probably the most interesting about this passage here is an explanation about the secret organizations. So this is a little bit harder to see, so I'm going to lean back a little bit. Hopefully y'all can still hear me. But the oldest, so there is a difference between the 4th epoch secret organizations and the 5th epoch secret organizations. Of course there is. So in the 4th epoch, that is when the gods and goddesses and everything were starting to be formed after the big cataclysm in the 3rd epoch. So you have your oldest orders, which are the Moses Ascetic Order, the Primordial, the Demonist Sect, the Secret Order, the Blood Sanctify Sect. Why not? And then they said, and so on. I don't know what the Blood Sanctify Sect is, but that's crazy. So they're the old ones. They are the old orders that have been there forever. We've talked a little bit about them in episodes past. But in the 5th epoch, this is the part that gets crazy, that the families, new orders were developed by the families of those frightening organizations from the 4th epoch. So the 4th epoch started these secret organizations, and then some of these families, like, I'm just going to say it, probably Antigonus family, probably, they started to gain notoriety within those organizations, and then they branched off and formed their own organizations and left the ones. So that's why you see this overlap, is because some of these newer organizations are just branches from the previous ones, that certain families branched off to start their own thing. The family started their own cults. So that's fun. So you have the Theosophy order and the numerous episcopate that came from the southern continent that we talked about. Then there's the Rose or Life School of Thought. That to me seems like it's related to the Mystery Priors, but I don't know. And then there's the Element Dawn, which to me, Dawn feels like a combination of the Evernight and the Sun together, so I don't know how that works. And then there's the Aurora Order, the Iron and Blood Cross Order. There's also the Psychology Alchemists. So yeah, all of these are newer ones that started from families from the 4th epoch into the 5th. I think the Antigonus family is one of them involved. We have the Ammon and Abraham families. We don't know much about them. We're going to find that out. So yeah, we are being blessed today. We're being blessed on this good day with many a chesticle shot, And here's the thing. I get on to shows for objectifying women and sexualizing women because a lot of these women, their characters don't seem to match the way that their appearance are, right? Like Klein is not the type of person to be walking around with his chesticles out or his abs out. That just doesn't seem to match his character at all. I don't feel bad saying this about Leonard because Leonard's a slut. He knows how he's dressing. He knows how he presents himself. It is very intentional. So I don't feel bad talking about it because he's doing it intentionally. And yeah, him wearing the sun badge. And look at Klein's little face. Oh my God. Look at him. He's like, you came up with the ways to go on a mission with me on purpose, didn't you? Oh, it's on. In the episode, I was like, oh, honey. Oh, Leonard's like, well, funny that you found a way to get me to come with you. Is this intentional? And Klein could not be more oblivious. I was like, want to take a plank from that dock and smack him across the head with it. Because Leonard's like, you just want me to come on. He's like, I suggest you give up on your unrealistic fantasies. Are we projecting much, Leonard? Are we projecting much? A bit. I think the person with unrealistic fantasies is you, sir. And I think that those unrealistic fantasies are about Klein, but you're just projecting that onto Klein being like, there's no way. Although, I want to make note, Leonard did not say you should give up on your unrealistic fantasies because I like women, or you should give up on your unrealistic fantasies because I'm already taken, or I'm not into your type. He didn't answer the reason why he should give up on those fantasies. So let's just establish that. Let's establish that. And Klein's like, what? He's like, huh? What are you talking about? I like that Klein's face when he walks away. He's just like, and look at Leonard smiling, that whore, smiling as he walks away. And Klein's like, what? Who cares about? Well, what did he say there about the secrets? He's like, even while on a mission, you'll never discover my secret. Look at him. Freaking L'Oreal glowing that hair. I feel like, is Leonard suggesting, he's joking about it. He's joking about it because I don't think he believes it. But it's almost as if he's suggesting that Klein is getting close to him to figure out what the shadow is that's following him. But maybe Leonard knows that's not the reason. He's just throwing it out there for funsies to, like, you know, so he can get it off his chest. But not that there's anything on his chest. Not for lack of trying. But yeah, and Klein's like, I don't get it. And I just want to be like, I want to shake him like an 8-ball. But yeah, he's like, what a narcissist. And I'm like, dear God. So then we have Gate. Gate, I was confusing with Kinley a little bit because Kinley looks very generic to me, and I have difficulty. I'm sorry, Kinley fans. He looks a little generic. I need him to look a little different. But Gate and Kinley, I was getting a little confused. Yeah. And plus, well, look, okay, here's Gate over here, and Kinley's out to the side being a damn boring cardboard box cutout. So that's why I was getting them confused. Okay, well, that makes more sense now. All right. And so he's like, follow me. There's a number of supernatural incidents, and this is where it's most severe. This felt like freaking Ghostbusters. Like, there's Kinley. There's Klein with that obnoxious giant hat. There's old Neil. There's Leonard. The heights of them, are those correct? Because old Neil's a lot taller than I expected, if that's the case. But yeah, it's like we have Ray, Venkman. We've got all them here. Oh gosh, Egon. Yep. And they're like, a handsome fella like that's going to be an exorcist. And Leonard's just like, we're not really exercising, but okay. I'm curious why Leonard has that face. They must be able to perform an exorcism. Like, you only see those men in the arms of politicians and noble ladies. Can't he do other stuff? I think that's an interesting line because Leonard does not seem like the type that would be in the arm of a politician. I feel like he would scoff at a politician and kill a politician, to be quite frank. And then the line about in the arms of noble ladies, I'm like, define lady. Define that. They're like, can he do other stuff? Oh, he can. He's trying to do other stuff, to put that frank. But it's not working because the other stuff is being oblivious about it. Yeah. And then they're like talking about old Neil. They're like, he's going to become a ghost before he exercises any. And I'm like, okay, also, this man in the back here with the hair, he almost looked like somebody I recognized, but I guess he's just a rando. That was interesting. And then Leonard's like, back off. Let the sluts through. He's like, we got this. So yeah, they go in there, and he's like, we are professionals. And I think Leonard's good at just kind of appealing to the mob mentality because no one there seems to know how the spirits are truly expelled, which to me is really interesting because that makes it seem like the Beyonders and the sequences and the Path of the Divine is a lot more secretive than hidden than I was giving it credit for. Because in my brain, I was thinking that more people knew about the Beyonders. They just didn't seek out that pathway because of how dangerous it is. But the fact that Klein's keeping it so secret from Benson and Melissa, and the fact that this whole scene here with Leonard was giving me Witch Hat Atelier vibes, and if you've watched that series, you know what I mean. But where he was like, the masses don't know how the Beyonders work. They don't know about the Path of the Divine or the powers that they have. So he's like, yes, I have holy water, a sacred emblem, garlic. And they're like, I've heard that's how you expel demons. And it's like, and Klein's like, yeah, sure. He transforms into a fake guru on the spot. Sure thing. Without further ado, this also, any Death Note fans, this feels like the warehouse at the end of Death Note. So yeah, And then I like that Leonard jumps out of the way so he's not possessed, and it ends up going through Kinley, and then possesses people and makes the guy Gate act like a dog, and someone else jump around. One lady's like walking like an Egyptian, and Klein's like, "Okay, Azek, your ghosts are pretty just common, nothing threatening." And I like he tells the one ghost, he's like, "Shh, we gotta play along. Like, don't out me here." And the ghost's like, "Cool." Then he's like, "Oh no!" Like this part was actually really funny of Klein trying to play along as they do the exorcism, and then using the sun charm to get them to go away. And then this one knight that is working for Azek like gets all the ghosts to leave, and Klein's like, "Well, that was good." He's like, "We'll start the ritual of cleansing the evil spirits." I love they make Klein and old Neil do this, and as just the rite of passage, and they cleanse it with the evil spirits there. I love it. This was such a sweet moment because I've been worried about old Neil dying the entire episode. So having this moment of Klein and old Neil like do the little dance together, I was like, oh, this is really sweet. And it's building this moment up between them. But if they die, I'm going to be mad. That was magical. Professional exorcists for you. Meanwhile, this horse goes a mite bit cray-cray, and I have a feeling it's because of maybe Magos. Yep. And she's like, "Oh, don't mind me." And that's when she runs into Havre. Oh, she's like, "My baby is kicking because he's about to possess you." Did her family accept the child? Well, define accept the child. And so then old Neil's like, "Don't you have an urgent mission? Why are you dilly-dallying here?" And he's like, "That's my mission. I'm to follow this poor lass to see if we can find out where her fiancé, Lanavis, is." So let's talk about the ways in which Beyonders lose control. Because that's brought up, that's old Neil's main thing here that he talks about. There are 5 ways in which a Beyonder loses control, which gives me a little peace of mind because some of the ways are very intentionally, I think, not going to happen to our crew. So I was like, okay, all right, that's fair. The 2 ways, 1 and 4, are probably the ones that I was like, okay, those are the most obvious. Like, number 1 is directly consuming a high sequence Beyonder potion. So if you just grabbed the unshadowed sequence 4 from the sun pathway and you just went cool beans and chugged it like a Capri Sun, then yeah, you die pretty instantly. Because, so that one's obvious. The most obvious. You cannot consume high level sequencer potions. It does not work. So that's good to know. Yep, gonna do that. Number 4 was consuming a Beyonder potion. Well, we'll just go down the list. So number 1 is the easiest. That one I'm not worried about any of our crew because they're surely not going to be that stupid and do something like that. But a common person might. And that's really good to know that that's how that could happen, that you lose control. They're not strong enough to withstand the mental fortitude that it takes to consume a potion of that nature, and their body's not ready for it. Good to know. Number 2, this one is probably to me the most interesting and the one that I'm like, if it's that specific, that means we're going to talk about it later with somebody. That feels like something that's going to get brought up. It's such a specific way of losing control that I feel it's going to happen eventually. But it's like some are born with extraordinary traits, like the power of half a sequence 9. And they only correspond with sequence of a fixed pathway. And consuming potions from another pathway, in severe cases, can lead to death. So, in other words, that those born to specific with like genetically predispositioned for certain pathways. To me, that feels like you were the child of Beyonders, and thus you are predispositioned to genetically go towards a certain Beyonder pathway. So for example, I'm just putting it out there. Let's say that Dally and Dunn had a child. Let's just say, not that I would want that for them, not that I'm, hoping that for them, although in their profession, not likely. But let's say Dally and Dunn had a child. Would that child be more predispositioned to be like genetically constructed for the sleepless or corpse collector pathway? Possibly. Azek's children, Azek's a corpse collector. Are his children more predispositioned to go into the corpse collector pathway. And if they don't, and they become like a mystery prior or something, could that lead them to possibly being more prone to losing control and going berserk? That's how I interpret number 2. Like, if you consume potions from another pathway than what you're predispositioned for, you could go crazy and lose it. So that could be. Number 3 is that once you choose a pathway, they said this in episode 1, you can only progress down that pathway. So people could go berserk if they started out, like if Klein decided he wanted to go down the sun pathway, but he's already started the seer pathway and he consumed the unshadowed potion, yeah, he could go berserk easily. So they said that you're either going to go berserk, you'll enter a half crazed state and will probably lose control, or there's a single chance, like a 1 in 100 chance that you could consume back, if like, let's say you're a sequence 9 seer and you consume the sequence 8 folk of rage. Shouldn't have done that. Ought not have done that. Probably don't need to do that. There's a singular chance that you could stay on the folk of rage sailor pathway, but you have to keep consuming that current pathway. It says if you consume the OG pathway or the current pathway potions, it could lead to a loss of control. So, okay. So essentially, let me rephrase that. There's a chance you won't go crazy, but you can't consume anymore. You're done. You change the pathway. You don't need to go forward because otherwise it's going to increase the chance you could lose control. I'm not worried so much about those. Numbers 1, 2, and 3. Number 2 is a weird one. So that one makes me a little concerned. Like if Leonard was meant for a different pathway, but he chose sleepless. That one does concern me a little bit. Although Midnight Poet seems to suit him well. So there's that. Number 1, I'm not worried about. Number 3, I can't imagine anyone in the Nighthawks changing their pathway now that they've chosen it. I think they're too smart for that. The ones that concern me are numbers 4 and number 5. Those are the ones that concern me for our crew. Number 4, I do worry about for Leonard and Dunn, which is what Klein is trying to resolve. Because number 4 is consuming Beyonder potions. You are gaining abilities from an extraordinary species, right? And you are influenced that if you try to take a potion beyond your understanding, consuming a higher sequence of potion before you're ready, madness could accumulate and you could lose control. So essentially, if Dunn and Leonard try to advance to the next sequence out of desperation or out of urgency, but their bodies aren't ready, then they could start to accumulate madness and lose control. That's the one I worry about. That's the one I worry about. And that's where Klein is like, I need to try and find a way to let them know what I've discovered without giving away how I discovered it. So that's what he's working on. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited that Klein is trying to help the next generation not succumb to the previous sins of the other generations and what they didn't know. I think Klein feels ownership and feels the need to tell people about this because he knows it and it could save their lives, especially after what's happened with Havre and Old Neil. And then the way that Havre lost control was it said spiritual perception of Beyonders is heightened. This part concerns me a little bit, especially for Dunn. Concerns me a little bit for the sleepless, especially for the nightmare sequence. Because it says if you hear voices other cannot, see things other cannot, encounter events that others cannot, and are constantly tempted by mystery or illusory deceptions. Basically, if you start hallucinating and you are tempted by this mystery deception from this hidden entity, then you could lose control. I worry about Dunn because he has seen the true creator a few times through his dreams, and he's at the nightmare sequence, which one of the things they talk about is how they are forgetful and occasionally can confuse reality for dreams. That seems like a recipe for this being a problem. I worry about that. But also if they are overstimulated or have greedy desires. I don't think that Havre had greedy desires, but I do think his drinking led to him being in a state where he could be taken advantage of by a mysterious entity. I think that's exactly what happened. Especially because he was like, oh yeah, the one behind the 10,000 pound scam. The higher ups want to know if there's a Beyonder involvement, but we've not found any yet. Yep. We'll just close it as a regular fraud case in a couple of days. So again, like what we said at the beginning of the intro, Lanavis's whole deal is a big fraudulent case. And they think they're going to leave it as such. But this is what I'm talking about. Him just, yeah, whenever O'Neill's like, you could drink yourself to death. I'm like, he literally did. He literally drank himself to death. Because I think him drinking so much and being a drunk left him open to being taken over by that spirit and losing control. Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, you know, there's no better way to go. Drunk as a fish, you could say. Yep. And then he's like, well, Mr. Neal, you seem really close with Havre. And he's like, we're both old men here in Tingen. He doesn't seem that old. But then again, I feel like anime and Donghua, there is no in between. It's either you look 20 or you look 67. There is not much in between. It's like familiarity is natural after so long here. He's like, Celeste would pay to play the piano for us. And he's like, that's my wife. Old Neal looks exactly the same, but he does look a little younger. He has kind of like a Steins Gate Daru vibe to him, which is really cute. And she's gorgeous. Like, she's beautiful. Like her there, with the bracelet and everything. I wonder what her sequence was, because it seemed like she was a Beyonder as well. So Beyonders, look, they're establishing Beyonders can marry within the ranks. So there's hope for Dally and Dunn. There's hope for Leonard and Klein. I'm just saying. No, Klein needs to realize what the hell he thinks about anything, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. Yeah, and he's like, don't give me that look. Death is life's final resting place. Folks like us, if we don't die from losing control, it's a blessing. I appreciate Neil and Dunn have a very similar thinking about it. That they're like, we've chose this path, so we're either going to die on the job or not. Those are the options, which is not wrong, but that mentality is interesting that they both have. So as the sun's setting, Havre is following close behind her, and that's when he stops and starts to hear a voice. Yeah. I wondered if his drink was poisoned for a while, but I think it's just because of his interaction with her. And it just started to act up. So yeah, they expelled all of the spirits. But the possessed weren't really that harmed. And so Klein tries to divine, the origin of the spirits. But Mr. Azek, all he can get is the inverted pyramid from the southern continent, which is so cool. Love that. Whether it's East or West Balam or the Highlands Kingdom. Or only the so-called descendants of death built the mausoleums for themselves. He's like the being that started the pale disaster alongside the primordial demoness. Ooh. So we have this concept of death and their descendants, which we believe that possibly Azek is one, which would kind of make sense. Or maybe the descendants of death are those that go on the corpse collector path. Maybe that's it. I do kind of like the idea that people are kind of genetically predispositioned for a certain pathway. That would be interesting. It's kind of like ties to genetics and their origins and everything. But we also find out that death started what is called the Pale Disaster, along with the primordial demoness. Interesting. Which is where Trissy comes in. So that's cool. We're connecting them together. I want to know more about all of this. The worshippers of death create evil hauntings, but what's their goal? So yeah, so Klein recognizes that from his vision of Mr. Azek, he's like, was there a battlefield for the Pale Disaster? And that's where Azek was kind of born. Were there people trying to influence all that? I need to know more. I'm hoping the novel will give me more when I read it, because I'm like, I need to know more here. He's like, I should be even warier of who's ever behind all this and their theft of the skull of Mr. Azek's son. Yeah, that's a problem. So we have to wonder if any of the worshippers, are the worshippers the one who stole Tenno's skull? We don't know. I would be concerned. I would question that. But I don't know. I don't know. So we'll have to see on that one. We're just going to leave it there for now. And so then Klein gets the medallion. And he, Leonard and Hindley and Kinley go on duty while Klein is watching the charm. And he's like, all the charms within the Everknight's domain are pure silver, but the sun is gold. Which makes sense. The Everknight goddess and the sun god are on polar opposites, and it's gold and silver. Makes sense. So yeah, Klein's like, I want to take the power from the sun charm and put it into these two charms so that I can use them to protect. He's got two of them. So there is the question, like, he could use one to protect himself. What would he use the other one for? In my mind, I feel like he'll either use the two charms that he has now to protect himself and either himself and Leonard, or himself and Dunn, or he will use them to protect Dunn and Leonard and not himself, is what I think it's going to come down to. If he protects himself and Leonard and like Dunn gets hurt, that's going to be crazy. So we're setting up, we have three main Nighthawks, Dunn, Leonard, and Klein, who are constantly on the battlefield. I mean, Fry's there too, and Dally's there too, but it's always Dunn, Leonard, and Klein. So I'm like, the fact he only has two makes me nervous. But yeah, and then Klein's like, hey, sup, Sun God, I know you tried to kill me last time. Want to help me make this charm? And the fact that the sun itself, like, quivers as it's done. Wild. Absolutely wild. Yep. And there's Magos getting in there. And then oh, wow. You can see the footprint transforming from a human footprint in the boot to like an animal footprint. And as it goes into the sea, the body horror of it all, y'all. The body horror of it all. And yep, he's like, transfer the power onto these charms. I'm glad it actually worked before things got crazy. Meanwhile, Leonard and Kinley are playing Go Fish. And the sun quivers and he's like, well, that's such strange weather. Yeah. So what's this business? Leonard, what you doing? What's your shadow thinking? Leonard's on to Klein, and I just wish that Klein could get Leonard up to speed so that he wouldn't freak out. I just need that to happen. I don't need any miscommunication between these two. I just need them to understand each other. I don't think that's hard. I don't think that's hard. I just, yeah. And then luckily for Klein, not unluckily if you think about it, but luckily for Klein, Havre's transformed state shows up. And right as Klein like fires the gun at him 3 times, does nothing. I also think it's interesting that I don't know if there's something to it or not. Also, Leonard protecting Klein by having the door fly to him. I don't know if there's something to it, but does your transform Beyonder state also depend upon the sequence? Because like, if Alger lost control, would he become a swamp monster too? Would he become a merman? Merman. Would he become that? Because let's say Bieber, he lost control, but we don't know what sequence Bieber was. I don't think we were ever told that, but he lost control and became this like blob. And then Sirius, he was a secret suppliant and he became like a werewolf. So I'm interesting to know like if there's a pattern that they would become. I don't know. And then Leonard's like, it was at least sequence 8 prior to losing control. So yeah, that's also terrifying that the higher the sequence you are when you lose control, the more strong you are. We just need to make sure Azek does not lose control. Although seeing his son's head might cause that, I'm concerned. So yeah, because then, and that's why I'm concerned about Dunn. Dunn is a sequence 7, which is more than Leonard and Klein. I am concerned about this if Dunn lost control. I don't know. So Kinley takes off and Neil's trying to get everybody there out of the way. And he's like telling the officers what to do. He's like, find a way to notify Havre. Ugh. My heart broke into pieces for Neil. Especially when Neil realizes who it is. Right? Because I think he just... And of course, the flag falling down. The like, is it supposed to be the C? The C one? It falling down? Now, old Neil hurt his hand. Which, hurting his hand there... to me, Klein made a deal of that, but like, old Neil's old, so like, when you get blood spots and stuff like that, it doesn't heal quite as well. Again, my concern for old Neil. Because old Neil is literally the last one of his crew that is left, which is really sad. I think it was him and Havre, and now it's not. But yeah, Just Havre's like fish form is really creepy. Leonard having this like Leonard knowing how to work a pole should not surprise us. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It's just the show needs to stop making it so easy, right? Like, yeah. Leonard knows his way around a giant pole. I'm sorry, he does. It's real. And Klein tries to help him by tying, like, Klein tries to help tie him up through these chains, and Leonard takes note of Klein's kinky tendencies before Havre breaks free. And then they swing around, which at first, I thought that Klein swinging around with the rope, he was going to like get flung into old Neil or something. But no, it actually ends up working out. Klein's, what could be bad luck for Klein ends up working out in his favor. Because, oh God. And then whenever Havre looked over at Neil, and then he like started to like looked over and he started getting control back. My heart. Freaking angst. Angst City. Angst City. I hate it here. Also, look at him. Look at this bitch. Look at him. Just like smug as hell. Just being like, yeah, I'm swinging around, you know, like I do. And then Leonard is literally about to be hurt, and Klein kicks him in the gut, knocks him down, saves his life. Leonard's like, well, imagine that. He's like, that worked. I love that worked. And then old Neil puts him to sleep. And that's when the crumpled flask falls, and that's when Neil realizes who it is. But Leonard's like, nah, we're going to wrap you up. Oh, threats of hell and hopes of paradise. Oh. Yep. And he realizes who it is. I hate it. I hate it here. It sucks. And it is Havre. Yep, and so when they do the spiritual imagery, everything's black. Everything is like worry, sorrow, silence. Everything is just pitch black. Like it's, there ain't nothing left there. So he can't be he can't be turned back. And I feel for both of them, because they're both looking at old Neil, and Leonard's like, well, I'm gonna have to shoot. Like Leonard looks really sad, like he just didn't want to have to do this, and old Neil's like, let me do it. He like takes the planks off. And he's like, your hand. Oh. And then yeah, it's the flag, the Storm of Rage. The Lord of Storms flag. That is such a crazy moment where he takes the gun from Leonard. I feel bad for both. Like Leonard looked like he genuinely was really sad too about all this. And yeah. Damn. Ah! Just so sad. So freaking sad. That's like his last friend. And Klein's like, if I don't do something, this could happen to Leonard and Dunn and Fry and all them. And I'm not about that life. Also, old Neil's one of the realists. Pour one out for his friend with the bloody hand and his blood mixing in with the liquor he's pouring out. Pour one out. Old Neil's such a real one. I freaking love him. So yeah. And then we transition to this scene. So we transition to his home. And I was aghast. I was speechless. I was stunned. The red moon, the way that it forms this like veil over him as he plays the piano. It feels like his home is no longer this place. Like ever since his wife's died, this place is he just let everything go. Like the flowers are dead since his wife's died. The cookies and stuff are just decaying and molding. He's not taking care of anything. The candles, there's like cobwebs by the fireplace. Like he can't sit there with his wife anymore. He basically just lives in the Nighthawks headquarters. All of his study and everything. The candles where there's the shots of everyone that's died. Like this place has no value to him anymore. There's nothing joyful here since his friends have left him. So he just spends all his time at HQ to avoid coming back to this. Y'all. And then when you notice his home has become so dull and lifeless, and you see there's his wife, and you see the shot of all of them. Well, but here's the thing. So I don't know if Celeste is one of the ones that I'm assuming, because he had, well, is his wife different from the ones there? His wife's in a different photo. Yeah, she's different. Okay. So his wife is different from the women that are in this picture, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, so there's the, like, 6 of them, and you can see them all there. And the one guy has the card. She has the bracelet. He has the flask. There's these other 2 over here. Yep. And so what he notices, he's like, everything was fine, so why did he lose control? We see the one girl's bracelet, meaning he's killed her and took the bracelet. Mm-hmm. And then as he's playing, we see the card, and he has that, meaning he's killed that person. Yep. Mm-hmm. And then we see the rings from her, or from both of them. Because, yeah, what was the shot? It's both of them. The 2 wedding rings, the couple, and both of the rings there, meaning he's killed both of them too. And then the flask from Havre. So, yeah, no, old Neil, all his friends have died, and he has he's either killed them and kept the mementos, or they've died and he's took the mementos from them. Crazy. Crazy. I thought for a moment, the reason why I was trying to figure things out in my head in that moment was, I thought when it went from Celeste to the picture of all of them, because Havre looks so young, I thought for a second that maybe Havre was like his son or something, and that he just referred to him as Havre because he, you know, when you work with your son, you don't want to, you know, have favoritism or nepotism and stuff like that. But no, the tragedy is that Neil has watched all of his friends die and kept their things. And Klein realizes, if I don't change something, that's going to be me. I'm going to become old Neil and have to deal with my friends dying. And he's like, oh, hell to the no. He's like, nope, not having that. He's like, when we were drinking and I saw him at the docks, nothing was unusual. What caused the loss of control in such a short space of time? If the cause can't be traced at all, then a Beyonder's loss of control is more frightening than I originally imagined. He's like, 2 flaring sun charms. You know, be it the Notebook's temptation or the person behind it, I can fight it. But this life-saving trump card can't stop a Beyonder from losing control. The captain said most of the Nighthawks died from losing control, so does that mean we can't escape that fate? And that is a scary thought. That is terrifying. And old Neil proves why that's terrifying. And why it would be easy to sink into that spiral and that depression. But I love that Klein, by the end of it, he's like, no. I love that Klein, by the end of it, he's like, no, actually, I'm not going to lose control. He's like, is it possible that the more control someone has over themselves and the stronger their Beyonder powers are, the lower the chance is of losing control? I think that's a very good thesis, because that would explain maybe why Azek is so on top of everything. Granted, there's a price to pay when you get to that point. In Azek's case, it's that everyone around you could die by your presence, but you're fine. So that would kind of make sense. If you had this spectrum where the sequence 9 are the most likely to lose control, because it's the beginner sequence. You don't exactly know what you're doing. You don't exactly have control over the powers that you've been given. You're trying to figure out how to digest things. You are more likely to lose control if you're sequence 9. That makes me worried more for Leonard than Dunn, if that's the case. But I feel like Leonard and Dunn hopefully are on top of things. But then if you get to like sequence 2, you're not so worried about losing control anymore. Because if you got to that sequence, then you are in control of your body and your mind and your abilities. So it does make you seem more stable. So I think that's a pretty reasonable thesis. And so Klein's like, so basically what I've got to do is I need to advance to clown. It's time to advance to clown, as again, a sentence I never thought I'd say out loud. But yeah, Klein's like, okay, I've done all the digestion. I'm ready to go. I need to protect myself. We need to get to the next level. And then boom, there we go. Oh my God. What an episode. This episode was amazing. Rule of 8, y'all. Rule of 8. Hasn't let us down yet. So, yeah, okay. we've established that whatever's in Magos's belly is very, very, very scary and very dangerous and has already caused one Beyonder to lose control. So we need to be very cautious when we are around her. Also, that would explain why nobody is getting around her, because otherwise she's basically, it almost feels like the baby is in self-preservation mode and the baby tries to like lure people into losing control if they try to get too close until the baby's born. That makes me concerned. But yeah. Anyway, I'm going to let all this digest. I'm going to let all this information digest. And I'm going to wait to hear some of y'all's comments. And then I'm going to be back for episode 9. And we're gonna go from there. We don't have Old Neil next week. We don't have a Chippy Short or Old Neil next week. That makes me sad and concerned. So, anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with more of Lord of the Mysteries. And I'll see you then.